I paid my brother $1,500 every month to help with his living expenses, but when I refused to buy him a BMW, he called me cruel, and my parents sided with him. I cut off all support and demanded he pay back everything I had given him. They're now trying to reach a settlement, but I ignore. Seattle's rain was pounding against the window of Cindy Ford's office. She looked away from the quarterly financial report on her screen and gazed at the leaden sky. Normally, the view from the 30th floor would relax her, but today was different. Her cell phone vibrated, displaying a message from her brother David. "Cindy, do you have this month's living expenses? I won't make rent next week." Cindy sighed deeply. This marked the third year. To support her brother's college life, she had been sending $15,000 annually for living expenses. Their father had run a company but failed to keep up with the times, accumulating debt. Their mother was a housewife with no income, and David was a college student. The family's livelihood completely depended on Cindy's salary. No one but Cindy, who worked at an investment bank, could afford David's educational expenses. "Understood. I'll send the money today." She replied succinctly and opened her online banking page. The monthly transfer had become a routine. She thought it was all for her brother. While staring at the balance displayed on her screen, Cindy reminisced about events from 10 years ago. Their family had no financial leeway, but her brother aspired to attend law school, and she couldn't bear to make him give up on college. So Cindy, already a working professional at the time, chose to become the pillar of the family. Fortunately, she was financially comfortable due to her employment at a major corporation. However, bearing part of the university costs for 4 years was quite a burden, so instead of relying on scholarships, she offered to cover the living expenses for her brother, who needed to live alone. "It's time for the team meeting." Her assistant's voice brought Cindy back to reality. "Thank you. I'll be right there." On her way to the meeting room, Cindy saw her reflection in a mirror on the wall. Her navy blue suit was impeccably tailored, and her black hair was neatly arranged. At 32, as a senior analyst at an investment bank, she continued to strive for the top. Cindy calmly analyzed figures and made precise proposals. Her expertise was recognized by everyone. After the meeting, her cell phone vibrated again. This time, it was from her mother. "Cindy, I think David must have contacted you." "Yes, I've already sent the money." Cindy interrupted her mother's words. "Please understand him. College is a time to enjoy life." Cindy closed her eyes. Her mother's words always hid the usual criticism, the dissatisfaction with a daughter who was all work and no play. "I understand, Mom. I'm at work now, so we'll talk later." She hung up and returned to her desk. It was 6 p.m. Outside, it was already dark, and the rain was intensifying. A pile of documents still needed her attention on her desk. At 9 p.m., having finished her work, Cindy left the office building with an umbrella. The streets were nearly empty. She bought dinner at a nearby deli and headed to her apartment. Back in her room, in a luxury apartment, Cindy kicked off her high heels and sank into the sofa. While eating her takeout dinner, she checked her bank account balance. After sending money to her brother, her balance was lower than planned. The purchase of a new suit would have to wait until next month. Cindy sighed lightly and poured herself a glass of wine. A family photo on the wall caught her eye. The young Cindy in the picture still had hope for the future. Her cell phone rang again. This time, a message from David. "Cindy, thank you. I'll definitely cut back next month." Cindy chuckled. She had heard the same promise many times, yet she couldn't blame her brother. At least he was attending college and preparing for his future. That was what Cindy had wanted. As the night deepened, she opened her laptop and started preparing for the next day. While drafting a proposal for a new project, she pondered, how long could she keep up this lifestyle? Her pension, her mother, her brother's demands, the pressure at work. Sometimes, the weight of it all seemed to crush her. But Cindy Ford wouldn't give up. That was her way. By midnight, she finally headed to bed. That night, Cindy habitually picked up her smartphone. With steaming chamomile tea by her side, she checked her social media. Usually, this was a task that took only a few minutes, but this night was different. When she opened Instagram, a post liked by a colleague caught her eye. A young man raising a champagne glass in a high-end restaurant called Canopy. A familiar face. Cindy's finger paused on the screen. It was David. "Let's enjoy life. # luxurious night, # best friends, # Canopy." Cindy checked the date of the post. 2 days ago. It was the day after he had messaged her saying he was short on food money. Canopy was an upscale restaurant where a meal cost no less than $200 per person. Even Cindy herself only went there for special occasions. A wave of unease swept through her. She opened David's profile page. Post after post hit her like a punch in the stomach. "It can't be," Cindy spoke without realizing. As she scrolled, more evidence of a lavish lifestyle appeared. Shopping at high-end boutiques, parties in VIP rooms, the latest smartwatch, designer brand clothes. Every post perfectly coincided with the times he had asked her for financial help. Her hands trembled. The chamomile tea grew cold. My stomach hurts. I need money for medicine. The rent has gone up. The utility bills are higher than expected. David's past messages echoed in her head. Was it all a lie? Had her sacrifices merely supported her brother's luxurious lifestyle? Her phone vibrated again. A new message from David. Cindy, we need to talk. I found a new car. Cindy threw the phone onto the desk. It was more deep sadness rather than anger that overwhelmed her. For 3 years, she had cut back on her own life. She had foregone new clothes, minimized vacations, and dedicated everything to her brother's future. She stood up and headed to the kitchen. She opened a bottle of wine and poured it into a glass. Her hand shook, spilling some wine on the counter. Without bothering to wipe it up, Cindy returned to the sofa. She opened her brother's social media again. This time, she scrutinized every detail. The luxury watch in the posts was worth at least $5,000. A new gaming console, high-end sneakers, brand bags. As she estimated the costs, it became painfully clear where her support money had gone. The night wore on. Cindy saved screenshots of all the posts, date, location, estimated cost. She documented everything. She opened an Excel file and began to calculate calmly. Sadness slowly turned into a cold fury. The next morning, Cindy arrived at the office an hour earlier than usual. She printed the bank transaction history and reviewed 3 years of money transfers. The total exceeded $45,000. As she stared at the mountain of evidence spread out on her desk, Cindy had made up her mind. Cindy, you're early today. Her colleague Kelly approached her. Yes, just doing some research. Cindy responded calmly. She called her father. After 3 rings, a familiar voice answered. Cindy, this is unusual. Dad, I need to talk to you about David. Cindy chose her words carefully. Oh, about the new car? He told me about it. There was a proud tone in her father's voice. Cindy was momentarily at a loss for words. Her father already knew. Dad, you do know what the living expenses I send are for, right? At least let him enjoy his youth. You're always too serious. Those words shattered something inside Cindy. Both her parents knew yet had turned a blind eye. In fact, they even supported her brother's luxurious lifestyle. Dad, I cut back on my own living expenses every month. Cindy, you're successful. Isn't it natural to help your brother? Cindy sighed and hung up the phone. Her family always sided with David unconditionally when it came to him. The recent call probably didn't make them realize the extent of David's lavish lifestyle, but they dismissed the financial pain it caused Cindy as trivial. She stared at the mountain of evidence on her desk. This was the reality of her family. They were all using her. Her efforts and sacrifices were taken for granted. Late at night, a new message arrived. It was from her brother, who had just posted on social media from a luxury resort hotel that morning. Cindy, I need $50,000 for a down payment on a car loan. I'm really cutting back on food expenses, but a car is a necessity, right? The attached photo showed him smiling broadly in a showroom. Cindy sneered. On her smartphone screen, past posts from her brother lined up. My sister is rich, but a miser. She does nothing for the family. Useless, acts all elite from her investment banking job, looking down on her own family. This was his true sentiment. All his careful words up to now had been an act, but this time was different. The last of Cindy's doubts had completely vanished. It was time to end this farce. Next morning, Cindy left home earlier than usual and met with a lawyer. She presented all the evidence and discussed her next steps. Miss Ford, this is a clear case of financial exploitation. The lawyer explained calmly. If necessary, we can consider legal action. Cindy shook her head. No, I have another plan. She returned to her office and opened her computer. Using her years of investment experience, she began the process of moving and protecting her assets. She diversified her accounts and set up a new security system. She would not be exploited by anyone anymore. In the afternoon, a call came from her mother. Cindy, David is crying. Why won't you consider the car? Mom. Cindy's voice was as cold as ice. I'm done being used. What are you saying? We're family. Her mother's voice trembled. Yes, we are family, Cindy said quietly. And that's exactly why this should never be allowed. After hanging up, Cindy opened her social media. She began drafting a long post. I want to share my experience with financial exploitation by family. In the evening, David showed up at her office in person. Cindy, why aren't you responding? Cindy calmly looked at her brother. His suit was high-end, his watch new, his hair perfectly styled, all bought with her money. Go home, Cindy said tersely. What are you talking about? We're family. David raised his voice. Yes, family. Cindy stood up and walked to the window. That's exactly why I won't tolerate any more lies. Cindy, what are you talking about? David's voice wavered. I'm talking about your lavish lifestyle. Cindy turned around. I'm just revealing the truth. For the first time, fear appeared on his face. Tell the truth to our parents by tomorrow, Cindy said calmly. Otherwise, I have plans. David started to say something, but Cindy raised her hand to stop him. Enough. For 3 years I've been deceived. This is your last chance. After David left, Cindy stood by the window again. Tomorrow, everything would change, that was certain. The next morning, Cindy woke up earlier than usual. She took a deep breath and turned on her computer. The draft of her last post, which she had prepared the night before, was still on the screen. Evidence photos, bank records, screenshots of conversations, everything was neatly organized. Checking her cell phone, she found over 20 unread messages from David. The content changed over time. It started with denial, gradually turned into pleading, and finally into threats. Cindy, you're joking, right? I'm sorry for everything. Don't destroy the family. Please, let's talk. If you keep this up, I won't stay silent. I might contact your company about various things. Cindy read all the messages, but did not reply. Instead, she opened the bank's website. She checked the automatic transfer settings and pressed the delete button. Goodbye, David, Cindy murmured softly. At that moment, a strange sense of liberation enveloped her. While having breakfast, she started preparing for the next steps. She reviewed additional documents to give to her lawyer and checked her email. She also saved property information from San Francisco to her bookmarks. On her way to the office, Cindy's phone rang. Cindy, what are you planning to do? Her mother's voice was frantic. Did you hear the truth from David? Cindy's voice was surprisingly calm. Years of anger and disappointment had brought her a sense of serenity. He's remorseful. Don't hurt the family anymore. Her mother's voice had the usual coddling tone, as if David was still a small child. Remorseful? Hurt the family? Cindy chuckled dryly. Her reflection in a store window on the street showed a sarcastic smile. I was curious what you would say, Mom. Even knowing everything, you still prioritize him, just as I expected. Cindy, you always go to extremes. David has had it tough too. He's young. Let him indulge a little. Had it tough? Indulge. Cindy's voice trembled slightly. For 3 years, I truly suffered. I skipped monthly dinners with friends, didn't buy new clothes, and gave everything to him. I worked overtime every day, even on holidays, and sent all the money I earned to him. But you can afford it. At that, Cindy felt an icy chill in her heart. So, because I can afford it, it's okay to use me. Do you know how hard I worked to get here? The part-time jobs during college, the relentless internships, studying from morning till night, you saw all that, didn't you, Mom? Oh, there you go again. Cindy, you always emphasize your own efforts. You lack gratitude towards others. We're family. It should be mutual. At those words, Cindy let out a scornful laugh. Gratitude? Mutual? What gratitude have I received? While David indulged in luxury restaurants, splurged on brand items, and enjoyed lavish vacations, I scrimped on my own life. If you have that much money, of course, you should help your family. Her mother's voice grew shrill. David is still young. He has the right to enjoy life. He doesn't need to lead a life just about work like you. At that moment, something definitively broke inside Cindy. Mom, now I understand everything. My life has just been that of an ATM under the guise of family destined to be exploited forever. Cindy, what a terrible thing to say. That's enough. Cindy hung up the phone. Her hands were trembling, but it was not out of anger, but rather a kind of relief. The conversation with her mother had cut the last ties of hesitation. When she arrived at the office, she immediately opened social media. She uploaded the long post she had prepared and all the evidence photos. David's luxurious posts, transfer records and pleading messages. Finally, she added a sentence. Exploitation under the guise of family is the most despicable betrayal. For 3 years, I continued to send monthly payments to support my brother's lifestyle, totaling over $45,000. However, these funds were not used for tuition or living expenses, but for luxury items and entertainment. My mother was aware of this fact and tacitly consented. Now, I am cutting off this chain of exploitation. Because we are family, we must speak the truth. Cindy pressed the post button and sent another prepared email. It was a transfer request to the San Francisco branch. Hours later, social media was ablaze. Cindy's post spread rapidly, receiving many comments of sympathy. However, condemnation from her family also poured in. What joy do you find in airing our family's dirty laundry? Have you forgotten all the years we raised you? A furious message from her father. I will never forget your actions. As a mother, I am ashamed to have such a daughter. An email from her mother. Cindy, are you trying to ruin my life? This going public could affect my job prospects. Threatening words from David. But Cindy was unshakable. She blocked all contacts and began the process of getting a new phone number. She also changed her social media accounts to the highest privacy settings. In the evening, she received a call from HR. "Miss Ford, your transfer to the San Francisco branch has been approved. You will start next month." "Thank you," Cindy replied quietly. Having cut off all contact, she did not know what actions her financially strapped brother might take. Moving physically away was advice from her lawyer, but she felt a slight excitement about the change in environment. She felt the door to a new life opening. Back at her apartment, she sat in the living room and poured herself a glass of wine. Messages of support from those who saw her post were coming in on her phone. "You showed great courage. Your actions give hope to others suffering in similar situations. I too was exploited by my family. Reading your post gave me the courage to finally move forward. Speaking the truth is sometimes the hardest choice, but it was necessary." Late at night, she completed the last piece of business. The documents she had requested from her lawyer had arrived. A registered letter addressed to her parents' home. It listed the total amount of money sent and the evidence of its misuse, mentioning the possibility of legal action. Cindy signed the document and sealed the envelope. This was her final notice to her family. She felt the weight of 3 years lifting off her shoulders. A month after moving to San Francisco, Cindy Ford welcomed the morning in her new office. The weekend before the verdict, her parents unexpectedly visited her office. "Cindy, please listen." Her mother's voice trembled. With a face more haggard than Cindy had ever seen, her mother took her hand and apologized deeply. "We were all wrong. We exploited you. I'm truly sorry." Cindy looked down at her mother with a cold gaze. "It's too late, but we really are remorseful. David too. He cries every day. He's lost all hope for the future. That's his own doing." Her mother's pleading continued. However, Cindy's heart had already frozen. "Cindy." Her father's voice had lost all its former dignity. "I came to apologize. It's all my fault. I indulged David too much. I exploited you without considering your feelings. I truly am sorry." Her father apologized deeply. He looked nothing like the strict father Cindy remembered. Yet, Cindy's resolve did not waver. The next day, David appeared. "Cindy, forgive me." His demeanor had lost its former arrogance, and he looked utterly defeated. "I was really wrong. I took advantage of your kindness to lead a lavish life. I even badmouth you on social media. I'm truly, truly sorry." David also apologized deeply. Even as her family knelt before her, Cindy felt nothing. It was all too late. The following week, her phone vibrated. It was a call from her lawyer. "The verdict has been finalized. The court fully supported your claims and decided to impose a stricter penalty." Cindy took a deep breath. Defendant David Ford is ordered to return the unjust gains and is found guilty of fraud. Although he will receive probation, he now has a criminal record. Given that he was job hunting, this verdict effectively makes it impossible for him to be employed by major companies. The lawyer paused before continuing. "Your parents have also been found liable as accomplices. If they cannot pay the damages, the foreclosure of their home is being considered." True to these words, the family home was put up for auction a week later. Her father's company was discovered to have significant irregularities during a tax inspection and went bankrupt. Her parents had to move in with relatives on her mother's side. A year had passed since then. The mornings in San Francisco were different, imbued with a unique light unlike Seattle's. From her 50th floor penthouse office, the view seemed to symbolize her new life. In her desk drawer, there were several unopened letters, all from her family. The latest envelope was hastily scribbled with urgent by her mother. Reading next to it danced with the words "check immediately" and "important." However, Cindy had no desire to open them. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from an acquaintance in Seattle. She hesitated but thought it might be work-related and checked the screen. "Cindy, it's about David. I thought you should know." Attached was a screenshot from a local newspaper. "Local luxury brand shoplifting incident. Defendant sentenced to prison." David Ford's name was prominently featured in the article. Unable to pay bail, David, who had spent 3 months in jail awaiting trial, ultimately received a 1-year prison sentence. Shoplifting while on probation led directly to an actual prison sentence. His re-offense, despite being given a chance for rehabilitation, was viewed severely. His photo was also included in the article. Gone was his formerly arrogant expression, replaced by tired eyes. Cindy sighed deeply as she set her phone down on the desk. This wasn't the first news she had heard. Over the past year, she had received fragmented updates about her family's situation. Their lives seemed to spiral downward as if by fate. After David was incarcerated, her mother's condition rapidly deteriorated. Unable to cope with the stress, she fell into a severe depression, medical expenses mounted, and savings were depleted. It seemed they were also kicked out of the relative's home where they had been staying. Rumors were that they were applying for welfare. After dropping out of college, David had drifted from job to job. His obsession with luxury brands remained unchanged, and he continued to live beyond his means, accumulating debt. His once luxurious lifestyle had turned into days of being chased by debt collectors. This shoplifting was the act of a desperate man. Cindy reluctantly took out the letters from her family. After hesitating, she opened the most recent envelope. Her mother's desperate handwriting danced across the page. The unpaid hospital bills are piling up. We've been blacklisted by several hospitals. We might lose the house. If you read this letter, please contact us immediately. Please, Cindy, you're our last hope. Next, the total amount of debt was listed. It was about a third of Cindy's annual salary, a sum she could easily afford. Cindy tore up her mother's letter and threw it in the trash. There was no hesitation in her movement. The luxurious life they had led was all built on lies. Now, they were facing the consequences. There could be no more fitting situation for the phrase, "You reap what you sow." The next morning, she found a more detailed article online about David's prison sentence. It included a comment from David at the end. "I reached out to my sister for help, but she coldly refused. My wealthy sister has abandoned her own family." Cindy chuckled. He still didn't think he was at fault. Her brother, who could only blame others, hadn't changed at all. That very nature had led him to ruin. At the office, a new project was about to start. Cindy focused on reading the materials. There was also talk of a promotion. If things went smoothly, she would break the record for the youngest head of department. Work was going well. She had a new partner, and she finally had time for hobbies. Life, free from the burden of family, was lighter than she had ever imagined. Late at night, drinking wine on her balcony, Cindy looked up at the stars. Memories of her former family felt like a distant past. There was certainly sadness, but it felt like an old wound that was already healing. By shedding the burden of family, she was able to live her own life for the first time. It might have been lonely at times. However, that solitude was far more honest than the false bonds of the past. Tomorrow, another new day would begin, and she would continue to walk her chosen path without hesitation.